I'm so glad you're with us here on the Clark Howard Show, and welcome. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you can make better financial decisions in your life. And happy Friday to you. I can't wait to start my Friday out by hearing where I've gotten it wrong on our weekly Clark Stinks segment. And also, since Friday's a day a lot of us dream about travel, or some people, it's a nightmare when I talk about travel, right? Mm-hmm. I want to tell you about an old way to get really cheap cruise prices at the last minute that's actually back as an experiment. And I want you to know about it if cruising is what you love.
I should have never encouraged you to speak.
You must be pretty stupid.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're right, pal.
Josh from Tennessee asked about his daughter's savings of $12,000 and the impact on the FAFSA in a few years. Clark said that she can put the money into a Roth IRA for the 2 years since the limit is $7,000 per year. This isn't exactly correct since she can only put in the amount of money earned, right, and it has to be deposited prior to the tax deadline if doing a previous year contribution. And if she continues to earn money this year, she will have even more money that will need to be moved into an alternative account and will not be able $1,000. I'm curious what alternatives he would suggest because we have the same situation. I was able to open a Roth account for my son, but only up to his $2,500 previous year earnings, leaving a larger amount in a basic checking account. Lisa,
thank you. And you're right. It's up to the amount of earnings that a teenager has in a year. If a teenager has $2,500, like your child, your son was able to put $2,500 in a Roth, the rest of the money is still sitting there. In the case of the person who asked before, the $12,000 can only be moved if there were earnings over 2 years of 6 and 6 or some amount like that to get to 12 or 7 and 5 or something like that.
Yeah, and that question was asked before the tax deadline this year. So that's why you were talking about it.
So we're past that now. So this is a very difficult area because you have a kid who's working, earning money, which should be rewarded, but in the college financial orbit, they're punished for it because the money then is treated as a student's asset and expected to be used for college before any consideration for financial aid. So the colleges punish a kid for being industrious and working if they don't have the ability to shove that money into a Roth IRA. So I don't have a good answer for you for your son, but if your son is earning a good amount of money this year, then they'd be able to put $7,000 into the Roth IRA for this year, which would defray some of the money that would be looked at the college as money to grab.
You don't stink that bad. When it comes to buying a bed, you kind of smell like a cow pasture when you live by one. You advised a bed in a box at Costco or Sam's Club. I have had both, and both are okay. Then we found a hotel with the best mattress. So we took a picture of the label and called the company. They only make that mattress once a year, so we ordered 2. Steve,
I mean, that's a sleep right guarantee. You slept on it. You were like, this is the greatest thing ever. And you bought them. So why didn't you spill the beans on what brand it is?
Well, I don't know. It is. You do spend a third of your life in bed, they say. Well, if you get 8 hours a night.
Right.
You don't stink, but are in need of a reality check. It is 2024, and you continue to perpetuate gender stereotypes. In talking about micro carry-on bags, you said that you, as a male, have no trouble packing for a 5-day trip, but it is harder for women. It depends on the woman. I personally have no trouble packing light and utilize black and khaki bottoms that could be interchanged with various tops. On a recent beach trip, I made it through a whole trip with just 2 pairs of shoes. My husband, on the other hand, is a notorious overpacker. Please, it's time to stop chalking up behavior based on gender. Bonnie.
Guilty as charged. It's
I can't help it. I'm a guy.
No. Guilty as charged. You're completely right. Mm-hmm. I am spouting out an old stereotype. That one will not happen again. I'm sure there's other old stereotypes I'll use. But you are right, because I'm thinking about a former staffer whose wife went on a trip with us to South Africa. I
Yeah,
guess.
with a tiny duffel
Tiny
bag.
little duffel bag that would have even been small enough to make it as the personal item on Frontier or Spirit.
And she looked amazing every day. And meanwhile, my friend Jen, who came with me, brought not only a check suitcase, but a giant, like what would be a carry-on rollerboard that was filled with like her, hair rollers, which blew out the electricity in the hotel.
You're going to pick on Jenny.
Yeah.
No,
and
don't
her,
do that.
like all her toiletries and everything. Yeah. So it just
I
depends
can't believe
on the
you just
person.
threw her under the bus.
Oh, she doesn't care. She owns it. Okay, really, Clark, really, I think the stench coming from your Amex review may be affecting your judgment. While the Amex Platinum has a very high fee, you missed the best parts of membership in your review. Free Walmart Plus, which also includes free Paramount Plus. Using this, along with a few other benefits, throw in a lounge visit or two, and you've made up the hefty annual fee in no time. Not to mention my second favorite benefit, 1 Audible credit each month, so I can listen to all of Clark's books, Randy.
And Randy, you know that I have the American Express Platinum, and it's worked for me. But you have to really use the benefits it comes with. You got to be able to use the Walmart Plus, as you mentioned, which is worth a lot. Then once you have the Walmart Plus, you get the Paramount for free, and let's see, you get the Uber credit for $200 a year. Blah 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 blah. And the American Express has a massive annual fee. But for people who can use the benefits for travel and the benefits otherwise, it's true. It pays off. I just want to make sure when we review that card that people don't play mind games on themselves and think, oh, yeah, I'm really paying nothing for this $700 a year card. You got to be really intentional about it to get the full benefits from it and net out to where you're not really suffering from that annual fee.
Thanks to you, before the age of 30, I've already maxed out my Roth IRA the last 4 years and feel more empowered about personal finance than most my age. I'm writing because of your recent episode applauding college majors that are needed, specifically accountants. I am a CPA in tax, and although my income has increased substantially year over year, the stress is not worth it. We work incredibly hard 70 to 80-hour weeks, and clients often choose to disrespect our time and intelligence. We are necessary, but treated like a necessary evil. The industry is soul-sucking, and I soon, too, am looking for a way out. Fewer are choosing the profession, and I don't blame them. Just remember, there's more to careers than just money. Thanks for all your wisdom over the years. Shout out to my Uncle Chris, one of the biggest Clarkies, Skylar.
Skylar, thank you for that, and you're doing the right thing. If you've gotten into a profession and it's miserable for you, I don't care what profession it is. You're a CPA who does tax, you hate it. There are lots of ways you can use the knowledge you've developed to become a CPA and the experience you have in other fields, other professions, and go use them somewhere else.
You're stinking just a little bit here because in one podcast, you're talking about how Americans are only saving on average 3% of their salary, and another podcast, how huge Americans are in credit card debt. Yet you glamorize travel on almost every podcast. I incurred huge credit card debt 10 years ago by traveling and having the travel bug. Travel is very expensive, and I know of no easier way to not save money and get into debt. Sherry.
Sherry, thank you for that. This is one of the conflicts that if you heard podcast, I think yesterday, I addressed the thing where we are in a very unusual barbell right now economically in the United States rather than a traditional bell curve with a portion of the population having unprecedented credit card debt and then at the other end of the barbell, people having unusually large amounts of assets on hand and money available. So you do hear me speak out of both sides of my mouth because the society is so split economically right now.
Your discussion of gas prices shows how out of touch you are with reality. You stated gas is up 10 cents a gallon in the last year, when in actuality it's up over 50 cents. I know the two of you love your electric cars, but I don't want and never will buy one. EVs are expensive, impractical, and severely limit your ability to travel, but that's what the environmentalists want. Before you talk about gas prices, try doing some research rather than provide incorrect data. Phil.
Phil, there's a lot to deal with there. First of all, electric cars are not a political or environmental thing. I couldn't care about that For me, it's about how much fun they are to drive. And they just are fun. That's all there is to it for me. They're much more fun for me to drive than a gas engine car. That's why I've been driving electric now for 12 or 13 years. They're really awesome. Is for the price of gas, that's just looking at price charts. The price curve has gone way down on gas prices, has come up, and it's going to continue to go up because of market forces. With economies growing stronger, there's not enough fuel coming into the pipeline. And what does the market do at that point? It pushes prices up.
I've seen the future, and Clark stinks worse than the Atlanta Falcons' upcoming draft picks. The new Target Circle paid membership is a gussied-up, repackaged version of the benefits offered for free with the Target credit card. No need to waste $99 on the membership. Get the Target credit card instead, Jack.
Jack, thank you. The purpose of the Target membership is to mimic Amazon Prime and Walmart Plus with delivery. It's not about the benefits you get from having the red card, getting the 5% discount, things like that. Those things stay the same. It's only for people who want the convenience of delivery.
Clark, you smell worse than the stinky feet of most HOA boards. Your advice to the person who wrote that her HOA passed a policy that prohibited rentals was not to buy into an HOA. That was totally wrong. The ability to rent your home is part of the bundle of rights that you get with your purchase of real estate. Somebody, even an HOA somebody, can't take that right away from you. If it wasn't in the CC and RS when you bought the place, they can't take that away without a vote of the membership. Hire a lawyer and tell the board to go pound sand, Anthony.
Anthony, thank you. It is true that the membership has to vote for a change. My wife and I live in a condominium similar to a mandatory homeowner association, but a condominium. And the membership voted in a rule change and banned rentals moving forward. And so now that is the rule, and people coming in can't rent anymore. And this is something you're going to see more and more of as a reaction, particularly to Airbnb.
But if you already live there, you can still rent.
Depends on the laws in the state and how the condo documents or homeowners documents can be changed under state law in that state.
About your recommendation of not taking advantage of cruise line excursions, please know that recently we booked an excursion via the cruise line agent, not a cruise line excursion. Upon going on that excursion tour, we were delayed for about 30 minutes while waiting for another couple who never showed up. We then were waylaid to a hotel to pick up another couple and later to drop them back off. The accommodations this small bus offered were not comfortable. During the whole experience, it idled radically, where at one point we thought it was going to stall or worse, break down. It was a concern if we would ever make it back to the ship on time before it sailed. Further into our cruise, we booked 2 other excursions, this time through the cruise line. And yes, it is as you say, they did cost more, but not by much, and they were worth every penny when considering our enjoyment, comfort, and assurance of our timely return. As the old adage says, you get what you pay for. Please let your listeners know about what cheaper choices may yield. Linda. And then there was recently a story. Did you hear this? People were
about the people stranded in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went on a third-party excursion. They didn't make it back to the ship in time. The ship sailed out without them.
They're watching it leave, yeah.
And they have been in a mess like you can't believe. Do you know the cruise line went in, it was Norwegian, they went into the cabins, they opened the people's safes in the cabins, left their passports on the dock with a port official, and then they sailed off without them.
Wow.
And they were there sitting on that dock. So, yeah, it is up to you if you go on a non-cruise line sponsored excursion to make sure you are not going to be late. So the way I've handled that to deal with what you said, I'm sorry the excursion was terrible, but the way I've handled that is we always go on an early excursion when we're third party. So we're back, scheduled to be back hours and hours before the ship will leave the port.
Cruising just gets better and better.
Well, I mean, they got extra time.
You're just making me want to take another one.
They got extra time to sightsee in Africa, right?
Oh, gosh. I don't think they'd want to hear that.
Okay.
Those poor people.
All right. So you say that, and now coming out of Clark Stinks, where people say we talk too much about travel, We're going to talk about how you can get a bargain, a bona fide bargain right now because of a cruise experiment underway. So,
No thanks.
well, let
I know
the
people love it.
marketplace decide.
People love cruising. I think that's great. It's just,
Not your
not for
thing.
me. Yeah.
Okay. Straight ahead, that's coming. Long, long ago and far, far away, when cruise ships were a much smaller thing in the United States, pre-internet and all that, and the technology that exists today, cruise lines where they sailed out of would have a standby area. And people that were local could come with a suitcase, and if a cabin was going to be empty in the last hour or two before a ship would sail, they'd be able to buy that cruise usually for $25 a day, $25 a night. And so people who lived very heavily in South Florida, who were really into it, would go there and they'd just take their chances. And there might be several ships going that day, and they'd stand by on more than one, and either they were going who knows where or they were going back home. Well, obviously, we're in a whole different era. Cruise lines are much more sophisticated about making sure they got as many cabins, even all of them booked as possible on every cruise. But there's still no-shows, and Holland America, which is a cruise line owned by Carnival, has been testing for months a standby thing where you don't stay at the port, you're at home, but if you sign up for it and they clear you on a cruise 2 days out, you got to show up or you lose the money anyway. So depending on where you live, if you're distance you could drive in or fly in, whatever, you could end up going on one of these cruises, not at what the price used to be pre-internet, but it's like $50 a day, which is really, really good. That means going on a week-long cruise, $350 a person for the week. You could end up in an inside cabin, could end up with a porthole, could end up in a balcony. Most likely you're going to end up with an inside cabin. When this first came on my radar end of last summer, I was like, wow, this is really smart. Wonder if all the cruise lines are going to do this. And here I am, like 8-9 months later, it's still only Holland America. But if you've been on their ships, you like their ships, you're willing to put up with the uncertainty, let's say you're retired, whatever, and you're willing to put up with the uncertainty, this is a way you could be who knows where in the world sailing as a last-minute standby passenger. And it's just another option out there that is a new way of doing an old thing. And I think it's really fun. Not that I'm going to do it, but I think it's a neat idea. And Christa, if they paid you $50 a day,
No.
if they paid you $100 a day,
No.
$500.
Now we're getting there. I'd do that. It's an inside cabin. I
Yeah,
mean, I
you
guess you
hate
can just walk
cruises, don't
around.
you?
I do. Okay, Thane in Alaska says, you've said that the market is controlled by 3 major rental car companies, so the market is ripe for ripoffs. What do you think of companies such as Kyte? Are they worth a look? And should I be skeptical? Is it a ripoff? I would love your input as it holds much weight with my wife and I.
So Kyte is a very interesting thing that we wrote about first 2 years ago on Clark.com. So Kyte, K-Y-T-E, is now in like a dozen major metro areas. And it works a little like Turo, except they own everything. It is one of those incubator startups that's gotten a lot of money from private equity houses. A lot of young people got together and said, okay, we hate all the car rental companies that are out there. Let's start one that we would like if we were renting a car.
And we've never had as many complaints about car rental companies as we have had.
We've never had complaints about car rental
crazy.
companies like we're having now.
Yeah, it's really
I mean, the folks at Enterprise, which owns National and Alamo, and Hertz that owns a bunch of brands, and Avis that owns Budget and other stuff. I mean, the 3 of them you should really be proud of yourselves because you're teaching everybody to hate you. I mean, it's crazy. But anyway, Kyte is in, I guess I should name the metro areas, or no?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay. Atlanta, Boston, New York, Chicago, Denver, L.A., Philadelphia. Sorry, have to say that.
Philadelphia.
Well, I'm not an Eagles fan. San Francisco, Seattle, Washington, D.C. Sorry, Eagles fans. Falcon fan here. Anyway, so it works like Turo, which is where people rent their own cars to you and they arrange to meet you with it. You arrange to take it back. Except in this case, Kyte owns the fleet. And they arrange where they're going to meet you near an airport and return it near an airport. We have never had a complaint about them. And to today, we've never had anybody mention them. But they're out there. And you know what?
I'll have to try them.
I rent cars all the time.
Yeah.
Why don't I try them?
Try it. Yeah, why not?
It shall be done.
Excellent. Okay. Kay in Montana says, Clark, my husband and I are in search of a bigger home to accommodate our growing family with 4 boys. Ideally, we would like to buy our home first before selling our current home. We are in general very debt-averse people. We owe around $160K on our current mortgage and are already mourning the looming loss of our 3% mortgage rate. We have about $230K of equity in our current home and enough cash for a 20% down payment on a future home. What do you recommend we do with the equity in our current home? Is there a way we can use this money as additional down payment on our future home? We plan to buy first and then sell. Our realtor mentioned the possibility of doing a bridge loan. What are the immediate and future financial ramifications of doing this? And do you have any other suggestions?
Kay, I do. I heard Christa read these words and I was like, huh. Have you ever considered, Kay, in addition to raising 4 boys, being a landlord of that property? You've already got 20% down for the new house. You buy the new house, you don't forfeit that 3% mortgage. That 3% mortgage means your carry cost on the home you have is very low per month. You've got enormous equity in that home. Was it 160 still owed?
Yeah, and $230K.
230 in equity. Mm-hmm. I would keep that property unless you just hate the idea of being a landlord.
I mean, as long as you can rent it for more than the mortgage rate.
Oh, I don't think that would be a problem.
Yeah.
You buy the new house, you have the carry on it, but you don't lose the investment opportunity of the home you've got that's only got this 3% mortgage. Today's mortgage rate's 7% plus or minus. So I would not want you to forfeit that 3% because you've created the possibility of doing this because you've been such diligent savers. You've got that 20% down. So if you hate that idea, your realtor is right. There are local lenders that will hold what's known as a bridge loan, that they charge you a floating rate of interest, and they lend you that. And then when your current home sells, and then you have extra money to put in it, then you convert to a permanent loan with them or with someone else. Their hope is that you do the bridge with them and then potentially do the permanent financing also with that lender. So that's an easier, better way to do it. Real estate agents motivated. They want to get a commission helping you buy the house you're buying. They want to get a commission selling the house you have if you choose to do so. And they'll work hard to help you arrange that bridge loan during the time you're waiting for your existing home to sell.
Ken in California says, Clark, I would like to subscribe to a daily newspaper, but unfortunately, most publishers think it's $18.24 and want you to subscribe to their print edition, which typically costs around $300. That's probably a loss leader considering the cost of newsprint, printing, and distribution. I'd prefer an electronic edition, but they want me to pay the same amount for a product that costs a fraction of a printed paper. I estimate 50 cents per month. Most publishers offer teaser rates for a short period, but then the subscriptions revert to those costly rates. Even worse, they're tracking every article you read and serving targeted ads based on demographic stereotypes. It's a no-win for consumers. I wish I could support local journalism, but there seem to be no options. Why can't I subscribe digitally and anonymously at a low cost?
This is a great question. The newspaper publishers are in, Star Trek fans will know the Kobayashi Maru. They're in the no-win scenario. They have not been able, other than the big national publications, New York Times, Wall Street Journal,
Washington
Post has not been able to make money. LA Times has not been able to make money. Really, it's a two-horse race that have real national prominence, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. And so for others, they have not been able, with digital editions, to get the penetration of subscribers. Ken, if you were old enough, you would remember the era when in neighborhoods, it's like almost every driveway would have a newspaper thrown in it morning and afternoon. And that era is over, and the penetration of newspapers so small that the subscriber bases are so small that the people, it's like a, what do you call it, where it's in a death spiral, because they don't have enough people coming in, enough people paying money. So then the remaining people, you charge them a lot till they say not worth it. So that's why so many newspapers are closing.
And they've cut back on their staff.
Cut back on staff, cut back on news hole, whether it's online only or it's a printed form. And very smart people are trying to figure this out, because I'll tell you, we lose something if we don't come up with a good provider of local news. Who's following the school board? Who's following the local government? Who's doing the investigation of the corruption that may be going on with a contract for road paving or whatever? It is not going to be local television news. They're in a different business. So it is the equivalent of newspapers, and nobody has figured that out yet. It's so weird because I've been a newspaper columnist now for, this is my 35th year as a newspaper columnist. And I think about how when a column would come out, how many people would mention to me, hey, I disagree with you on this, or I didn't know about that, or whatever. That doesn't happen anymore. So either I'm really terrible at what I put in the newspaper now, or the number of eyeballs for it just is much smaller. And that's really what's going on.
And here's a quote from the Washington Post. People of all ages now turn to social media, with half of Americans getting at least some of their news from the sites and apps. Facebook is the most popular source, with 30% of adults regularly getting news there, followed by YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and X. And that's from Pew Research.
So, I mean, it is a tough thing. Somebody will figure it out, because the need for what's going on in a local area has not gone away, but the economic model to make that work, no one's cracked that yet. So how about you? I mean, come on, Ken. The need's there. You'd love to read one. Nobody's figured out how to make the economics work. Somebody smarter than me is going to have to figure that out. Maybe that's you. Well, on that note, we're done for this week. And I hope you have an absolutely fantastic weekend. And remember, do what you can to make your community better. Weekends used to be a time a lot of people volunteered. But since COVID, the number of people volunteering is way, way, way down for various charitable and community efforts. So if that's something you used to be in the habit of, you got out of the habit of it, maybe you can get back in the habit of making your community better. And have a great weekend. Remember, save more, spend less, avoid getting ripped off.